Hey guys, thanks for joining for episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Guardians of Xobos. This is a game by Imagine Realms, and it is a 2 to 4 player game that takes roughly an hour to 2 hours to play. It is also a competitive game, so each player is going to be working against the other players to getting the most points and be the overall winner at the end of the game. So, in the game itself, each player is going to be playing an alien race that is comprised of two different types of aliens. You have Quarks, which are these little, bee worker guys that are going to be scurrying around and assisting the big Guardians, which each player is going to have 4 Guardians in the game. And the Guardians are the big workhorses in this game. They're going to be used to build the different buildings, as well as doing a lot of the combat and defense of the different areas. From there, each player is going to be doing different actions throughout the game to build their different buildings, gather resources that will help them gather the gems that they're going to need to score at the end of the game, as well as going off and fighting the other players, trying to destroy their different buildings so that they can hinder that player and potentially help themselves, as well as doing different combat and fighting and defending and all that kind of stuff. So when the creator reached out to me to do a video on this one, he described this game as a game that was inspired by old school RTS games, which for those of you that might not be familiar with that term, that is real-time strategy games, such as Command & Conquer, Age of Empires, and even Warcraft back in the day before World of Warcraft came out. In those games, you had a base that you constructed throughout the game and built different types of units that you would send off and battle the other player's base in hopes that you could destroy them and basically conquer the map. So with that, this is inspired by that, as you're not really going to be building a lot of units and throwing them at your enemy. With this one, you do have a certain number of units. Like I said, you'll start off with 4 Guardians, and that's the maximum amount you can have throughout the game. And they're going to be multifunctional. They're going to be building your buildings throughout the game. They're also going to be defending and attacking the other players with those Guardians. And throughout the game, you can also heal them and increase their power and do different things with them, as well as there's going to be upgrade tiles and all kinds of different things. And one of the really cool features about this one is that all of your actions in that are going to be conducted behind a screen, so the other players aren't going to really know what you're doing or what you're strategizing, which is going to add a lot of strategy and tension to the game as well, as the other players don't know what you're doing and you don't know what the other players are doing. So like I said, it is a complete strategy game. There are no dice or any luck involved with this game. It is just numbers and you figuring out if it's good to go after one player or defend or whatnot. And so it's a really interesting, refreshing game in that regard, as the players are really just going head to head against each other and trying to get in each other's head and figure out what the other players are doing. And like I said, a lot of the stuff is going to be done behind this hidden screen, so whether you're building a building, you're only going to place out a representation of a building and not necessarily the building you're building. And then throughout the game, as you're gathering those different resources, you're going to be able to use them on a variety of different things. And even the crystals that you gather may be used for different things, as you're going to have to power up your watchtowers in order to have them work with those crystals. So it's not simply gathering all the crystals you possibly can behind your screen for the end game. You're going to have to probably spend some of those throughout the game as well to help your defense and help doing different things, whether it's doing guardians and whatnot. So like I said, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. I had a really good time playing this one and definitely would recommend it. I loved the strategy elements to it and the way that the game flowed and played. It's conducted over 15 turns, so you know exactly how much time you have until the end of the game, so that is part of the strategy as well. And like I said, there's a lot of different paths to victory with this one, depending upon if you go heavy tech or heavy combat, heavy defense, heavy resource gathering. There's a lot of different options and a mix of those within the game as well. So depending upon the player style you have, you can try different things or stick to whatever play style works for you the best and see how it does against your opponents. And they do add some different variants in this as well. So the first couple games you can play without the shields or do a reveal at the end of the round to make sure the players are playing correctly or fairly, depending upon who you're playing with as well. So as always, if you enjoy these videos, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channels. It helps me to continue to grow and bring these videos to you guys. And if you want to stay up to date on all my videos that I put out, also consider ringing that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new content. The one other thing I want to point out as well is that this is a prototype copy, so some of these materials are prototypes and are not going to represent the final product, as it'll look a lot better when it's mass produced. So just keep that in mind as you watch the video, that this is just prototype material. So let's head to the table and I'll show you what this one's all about. First thing I'm going to look at is the game board itself. So this particular one is the 2 to 4 player one, which will have bases on the 4 corners, and on the reverse side is the 3 player one that will have the bases in the 3 corners of the map. At the bottom of each of the maps is going to be the round tracker, and each game is going to be played over 15 rounds, which are broken into 2 steps, the movement phase and the development phase. And this will be tracked by an orange cube that you'll place down there. From there, then, depending upon the number of players, you're going to each select a base and place your guardians there. You'll have 2 guardians inside your base in the 2 locations, and then 2 guardians on the outside locations. And you'll also have 2 quarks that'll go inside your base for setup. Throughout the game, the players are going to be fighting over these different locations where they'll be able to build buildings. So they'll start off by building a spot that they have to be over. And then from there, depending upon what building they're trying to build, which will be hidden from the other players, when they meet the building requirements for that, then they'll go ahead and place it out. For example, they can place out a tech building, and the Guardian must be over a building in order to build it there, and the Guardian will have to stay there a number of turns until a player is able to build that building. From there, then the Guardians are going to be moving around, trying to destroy the other players' buildings and Guardians themselves. As the Guardians get closer together, they will be able to attack each other by putting down attack arrows. And a Guardian also can counterattack, in which case then both of these are going to be battling each other. Now you can team up and have multiple Guardians attacking one area or one Guardian as well, in hopes to defeat that Guardian and bring them down. Now as the players construct different buildings, they'll be able to acquire more building resources, which are going to be the gray cubes, which they'll use to build additional buildings, bring back Guardians that have been destroyed, and a number of other things. The overall goal is to collect the crystals, which you're going to be going after throughout the game, and you'll be able to mine for those, and at the end of the game, based on the number of crystals you have and the reactors that you've built, you'll multiply the number of reactors by the number of crystals you have to get your final score. The player that has the highest score will be the overall winner. Each player is also going to receive a player board that is going to have 4 locations for their 4 Guardians. And each one of their Guardians is going to have a token that's going to be placed in the back side of it that's going to correspond to that location. Each of these locations is going to track 2 things: the power level of the Guardian for that particular one, and the number of hit points that it has. And again, each Guardian will have a symbol that will correspond to the token that's in the back of it. At the beginning of the game, the player is going to set up each one of their Guardians with 6 hit points and 1 energy, or 1 power, except for the leader. And they will choose one of their models to be the leader. Now let's go ahead and say, for example, that this model was the leader. We would place this token off to the side, and that particular Guardian would have 2 power, and he's the only Guardian that can heal themselves. The player is also going to receive 9 quarks, and these little guys are going to move around the map as well. They're a little bit faster than the Guardians, where the Guardians can only move 1 space during the movement phase. The quarks can move 2, and they can take up the same space as a Guardian, where normally Guardians are not able to, they can only have 1 Guardian in a space, and Guardians cannot move through each other. The quarks can move around as long as there's an opening in there, and they can help assist the Guardians in combat and taking damage. Now, throughout the game, the players are going to be collecting, like I said, the resource tokens, which will allow them to build different buildings, which we have tech buildings, we have energy wells, which will allow the player to mine for crystals, we have resource mines, which will gain additional resources, and finally, we have watchtowers. And on the side here, we have the secondary board, which is going to track the number of crystals we get each round, and initially in the game, we don't get any, because we don't have any buildings. And then the number of resources, which we will always start with 1 resource that we'll gather each round. And then finally, each player is going to have a tech tree at the bottom, and as they build tech buildings, they'll move that up and will have access to buying different upgrades, which I'm going to cover in just a minute. Now, players are also going to receive the building markers that we already covered, and the reactors, which will be able to be built on their base locations. Finally, the players are also going to receive 2 other tokens, which are going to be assisting tokens to other Guardians as long as they're close. And I'll show you guys this in the map. But basically what you are doing is assisting other Guardians. So, for example, with this Guardian, this leader could assist the other Guardian with power, or by trying to heal him, which will help him with his defense in taking damage, or potentially even healing him wounds. Now each player is also going to receive a shield, as most of this is going to be done in secret. And this is the really cool part. You'll have all kinds of different strategies, and the board is going to outline all the different actions and stuff you can do and how the different things work. But throughout the game, you're going to be conducting things without other players knowing. So there's a lot of strategy involved with that, as you'll be able to plan out your turn and keep it secret from the other players. Now there are a couple of variants to the game where you can play without the shield, or at the end of each round revealing the shield if you're playing with players you may not trust or may not know how they do things, or if it's the first couple of games. As you guys are learning, you can do that as well. Moving over to the technology side now, when a player builds their first technology building, then they will have access to technology tiles that they'll be able to buy during the development phase. In each round, the player can only purchase one, and it's going to be based on the number of technology buildings you've built. So when you build the first one, you'll have access to the first 3 Tier 1 technology tiles. After you've built your second, you'll have access to the second tier, and if you've built 3 buildings, then you'll have access to the third tier. And with each of these upgrades, they're going to grant different powers, which are going to be outlined there. For example, with this one here, you can upgrade your Guardian by giving them more power or more healing. And there's all kinds of different effects. You can give your quirks an additional movement. You can siege buildings and take them over and replace them with your own buildings instead of destroying them, which will give you more victory points on all kinds of different things. So in each one of these, you can only build 1 per round. So most of the time, you're not going to be able to build all of these throughout the game. So you're going to have to prioritize where you want to build and how often you want to focus on those. And each upgrade tile is going to cost you two resources. And another important feature of the technology building is that if a Guardian is over it, you can spend 2 resources to heal them completely up to their maximum health. Or if a Guardian is destroyed, you can build them in the technology building and return them either to the space of the technology building or to the base if there's an open space. So let me show you an example of combat now. So it's the red player's turn, and he has gone ahead and attacked the blue player with his Guardian here in the Quark, and then he's going to move over his other Guardian and do the same thing, and attack. Now, the defending player can choose to counterattack one of these guys if he likes to, so he's going to do that. He'll counterattack here. And then from there, we're going to compare the numbers. So first off, if there's any quirk involved, they will cancel each other out 1 to 1. So our player over here will lose his red quirk, and the blue player will lose his. From there, then we're going to total up all of the points. So each of our Guardians will total up their power. So our player over here has 1, and this one over here is the leader, and he has 2. And then our Guardian over here has 1 power as well. So we have 3 power between the 2 of them. And then he has 1 plus the quirk for 1. So then the quirk will die, and quirks are always going to die at the end of the combat anyways, but they will soak some of the defense or some of the damage 1 to 1. And then we'll compare the rest, so they will deal 1 damage to him, or 2 damage remaining, and he has 1 power, so then 1 will get through, and we'll say that he has 1 hit point remaining, so then he has been eliminated. Now, with the Guardian that did not move, he can choose to move into that space, which will immediately destroy that building, and then he will gain resources for that. And then finally, at the end of the 15th round, after all players have completed their game, then each player is going to total up their score by adding up all of their crystals that they've acquired in their hidden area. They will not be able to count any crystals that are out in watchtowers, for example, charging them. But any crystals behind their screen will be added up, so our player over here has 12. And then you're going to multiply that by the number of reactors that you have built. So this particular player had built 2, so we would have a total of 24 points. And then the players would compare their scores. The player that has the highest amount will win the game. Well, I hope you guys found that video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by the Kickstarter's page and drop your comments there. I'm sure they would love to hear from you guys and are more than happy to answer any questions you have about the game, how it plays, or anything else within it. And like I said, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. I had a lot of fun with it, and especially if you're into strategy games or Euro games, or if you like the really cool miniatures with this one, or if you were a big fan of RTSs back in the day, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. I think it would do really good on your table, and you'd have a lot of fun with it. So as always, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do appreciate it, and I try to take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. And if you enjoyed this or found this helpful, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channels. That will help me to grow and continue to bring these games to you guys. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.